wonderful people. I am back from the dead. It's been like a month and a half since I've posted anything, so sorry about that. But you'll be happy to notice I am back and I will be posting more often. So today we're making clouds, and we are not making some half-assed clouds. We are actually going to be making real, like, passable clouds because I haven't really seen anybody do that in Blender. We're mainly focusing on the shading here, the shading style, because the shading style for clouds is quite unique, but it's not a simple volume either. So without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to just keep the start default cube and move it up by 1. And we are going into the shading. We are going to use cycles and mess with these to your will. I like to use 0.1. Clouds are puffy, they do not need a lot of very harsh detail. So 0.1 generally captures all this just fine. Also, I'm sick, my voice sounds weird, but you're going to have to deal with it. Okay, so we're going to add in a volume scatter shader. Set the color to white and leave the density as is for now. We'll be messing with that later. Let's keep the world to this default gray for now. You can add in your skylight later, but this will help us see some of the details without distracting us. So let's get going. So let's add in a texture coordinate and some vector math. Also, we're going to add in a vector mapping node, and we're going to kill the Z on here. Plug this into the vector, and then we're going to, instead of segments to add, set this to length and add in a darn, sorry. Alright, so that's going to be a length, and if we plug this into the density, we can see what it does. It's just going to be kind of a cylindrical mask. What we do though is we want to add a color ramp, flip it. That way it's sort of just a stretched out spherical gradient texture. You can see that that's how it looks. Since we're making cumulus clouds today, we are going to want to taper off the bottom a bit and have some puffy stuff up at the top. So let's do that. We're going to duplicate our vector math, changes to add this time. We're going to basically apply some distortion to this. So add in a texture, noise texture, plug the object output to this, and set the scale maybe like 3. I don't know, detail, more roughness, and then you can add, we're first going to want to subtract 0.5. Let's see where it's subtract. Oh dear Lord, I am going crazy. Color output in the first vector, and we're subtracting stuff. And the reason why we do this is because if you look at our regular noise texture, all these values, they average out to be about 0.5. And since when we're working with vectors, if it's above the value we're adding is above 0 in a certain color channel, you'll push it to the right pretty much in that channel. And if it's below 0, we'll push it to the left. So we're basically, instead of pushing each value like completely randomly, we're pushing some to the right and some a bit more to the right. And since this is a texture that is centered around the center, we want to avoid that. So that's what we're doing here. So subtract 0.5 from each of these channels, and then you might want to add in a scale node, so that the scale And I'm not using mixed RGB nodes here. I could be. This is kind of just a personal thing, because this is math with vectors, not with colors. Um, but it really doesn't matter. And the factor input of the mixed RGB, that's probably a bit more useful. This is just some sort of weird habit I developed. But there we go. Now if you see, we have done that. Yeah. So you might want to increase the density. To do that, add a math node after the color ramp, and you're going to multiply. And that's how you decrease or increase and decrease the density. Just this a 2. You can mess with the scale a bit. Now, if you want to increase or decrease the radius, you can add in a multiply node before the color ramp. And higher values, lower radius. Actually, technically, divide would be more appropriate here, because this number would literally be the average radius. That's kind of cool. Then what I like to do is I like to also, we're going to multiply this by the Z output. So I'm going to take it, separate XYZ, and put the Z output of the object output of the texture coordinate node. This is something that I'm actually going to use the mixed RGB for, because this factor will be useful. Again, set that to multiply. And then plug this into the add. You can see if we multiply, set the factor to 1, this is very smooth down here, very rough up there. Look kind of like smoke, to be entirely honest. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this at about 0.7. I'm also going to multiply by the C output. I'm going to add in a power, and then an add. Okay, and then you can see we kind of got a cumulus shape there. And what was I going to do? Oh yes, and then I'm going to multiply now I'm going to multiply this, multiply by, convert this to math, and then I'm going to do less than 1, set the value, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate this add node, actually not just this add node, just all of these, so we have more control. And then duplicate this. We're going to take the Z value here. So 1, you can see, no, you need to, instead of having this, have that. Then we might want to, we can keep that there. Might want to decrease this scale value right here. And then we can multiply that by this, and we can see we've gotten rid of some of the stuff at the top here. And now we actually have a decent cloud shape. And there's more stuff you can do, but that's probably good enough. Now what I like to do for these clouds, I like to crush this color ramp way up and put that down a bit. It's also, before I forget, turn this into spun, not spun, not spun. What am I talking about? Let's do less than. Okay, that's probably good. And then what we're gonna do, and this weird shading trick that I found, is we're going to duplicate this color ramp and mess with the sliders a bit so it's not all crushed up there. And we're going to add in a converter map map range. I like to automate this a bit, so I like to add in a value. Then a multiply and -1. And we're going to plug this -1, or yeah, this -1 into the max box, and then this negative version into the 2max. And plug this into 2min, and then what you do is you plug this into the anisotropy. And what you can see here, and you can mess around with these sliders, is that the center of the clouds ends up being brighter, right? And what you can do is, I like to do this, I add in a control. You want to basically link it to this multiply as well, so that it changes with the density. I'm going to change this instead to like 10, and then you can multiply it to 10. You can see, you can mess with this until, well, to your heart's content. Pardon the coughing. I think I said this before, but I'm decently sick right now. And then this will control the intensity of the shading. You can see at 1 it starts to look a little bit weird. So don't go all the way there. I like to keep it around 0.7. Actually, for this one, 0.5 might seem a bit more appropriate. I'm going to spend a minute or two messing with this, and then I'll get back to you. But yeah, so as you can see, there's cloud shading going on here, and the nice thing is you get those nice rim lights. You get all this fun jazz going around. If you turn this up, as I said before, you can see it more, but after a certain amount, it kind of looks a bit weird. So 0.6, 0.5, maybe 0.7, those look kind of good. Yeah. Mess with this color ramp if you want to see some interesting stuff. Let's try density of 10. Control out 0 to set the camera. By the way, you can render only a certain selection if you select Control B. But yeah, you can kind of control like like you see these look like really exaggerated storm clouds and all that jazz. Um, but yeah. So now there's one more trick I want to show you, and that is, set this to constant actually. These don't look very much like clouds still. I mean, you can kind of see what's going on with the shading and stuff. But there's also, they don't really, like you can tell when there's more light bounces, right, in here. Because you can turn up these volume bounces and you can see, oh, it looks a lot different. Right, so I want to show you how I figured you can bypass that. So let's first render out an image with, I'm going to tinker with this for a bit, and then I'll render out an image that's just this. And I'll put a nice background and stuff on it. Alright, so I've rendered this and it took about a minute and a half. I also messed around with shape and style a little bit, but nothing really new. Just changing some values. And I got this. Now, shape's not great. Admittedly, this wasn't a cloud shape tutorial. You can find probably better ones around there. This is how to shade them properly. And you can see we've accomplished that. You can see down below, there's like some really nice darker edges. But we still have a problem, and that is it occludes a lot. Clouds don't occlude; they don't absorb light. And like here's a picture, right? You can see the backside of those clouds, the not illuminated side. It's pretty uniform in color. It's no real occlusion. Now that happens when you got white scattering, no absorption, and a million volume bounces, right? But we don't have the time for that. So I'm going to show you a quick trick to sort of get past this. Now, it's hard to implement in some files, but for this one, we can do it. And that is to make our background very white and lower this anisotropy amount a lot. And now, switch your render layer or render slot and render it again. Alright, so it's rendered. Now it's very important. This is a very smooth image, right? So I'm going to add a denoise thing right here, and let's go into image editor. Let's pull this up. Result. Yeah. So you can see that's basically a mask of where it's occluded, right? So let's save this as. Let's go into tutorials. Let's add in a folder. Let's do AO map.png. Now what we can do is we can go into the other one. I'm also going to denoise this one just because we can. And we are going to add a color mix RGB, and we are going to divide by this. Grab it, input image, and then open the one we just made and divide it. And look at this. Not perfect, but it's a lot more cloud-like. Now I exaggerated a bit of this hard edging, so you can see some spots are quite dark. But I mean, if you look up actual reference images of clouds, I mean, it looks pretty similar. So let's call this cloud 1. And that includes like those, you can see a lot of in-scattering stuff there. You see how some parts, like the light shines through a bit. Now this takes some tweaking to get right, but it's a start, right? So that's it for this tutorial, guys. I'm going to do a quick plug here for my Discord server, which has been my pet project for like the last 5 months. We always have a bunch of fun on there. Well, I'm constantly on the voice channel, streaming whatever I'm doing. Very willing people to help you out. We got like 350 members on there, which is cool. I'd really appreciate it if you'd, well, it'd be cool if we kept growing this community. We always bring in very skilled people, and there's a lot of very interesting people in there. So yeah, that's it for this, guys. Have a great day.